Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ironworker Gaming Channel. I am Ironworker814 and thank you for joining me for another Destiny 2 viewer requested weapon review. The weapon we're taking a look at today is Thorn, and this video will serve as a complete guide, taking a look at how to acquire the weapon and analyzing its performance in all three of the game's core activities. This video will also be timestamped for your viewing pleasure, so feel free to navigate it as you please. And this is far and away the most asked for weapon review on this channel thus far. So to Bill Cosby, Buckaroo Banzai, Jonathan Yao, Brian Ryu, Omar, Panda Bear 7, Grant Shepard, Mike Jones 001, TJ Roach, and anyone else that I missed because I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, thank you for putting in your request. And if you find this video useful, helpful, or just enjoyable, liking and subscribing are great ways to show this video and this channel some support. Now every great first-person shooter has that one gun that almost embodies the essence of the game. The Golden Gun from GoldenEye 64, the BFG 9000 from Doom, the Fat Man from the Fallout series, and the Hardballer from Hitman. Just by hearing the name of the gun, you know which series it came from. And there is no doubt that Thorn carries the same weight in the Destiny franchise. Whether you like this gun or not, you know the look, you know the sound, and you felt its burn. Especially if you were around in the early days of Destiny 1 before it was nerfed, there was hardly any reason to use anything but Thorn. As infuriating as it was, a guaranteed 2-tap hand cannon was by far the best option, hands down. And while this made the Crucible an absolute mess, it also solidified Thorn's legacy in the Destiny franchise. And while Thorn is not quite the rage-inducing monster that it used to be, it still is an extremely popular and powerful weapon here in Destiny 2, where it sits at number 12 on most used guns in quick play Crucible game modes over the past month according to Destiny Tracker. So aside from its storied past, what makes so many Guardians gravitate to Thorn? We'll figure that out in this review, but first let's take a look at how to obtain this weapon for those who have not done so already. Okay, so acquiring Thorn is a process. This is definitely one of the more time-intensive exotic quests in Destiny 2. But really, it isn't all that bad until you reach the last two steps. One of which is a serious grind, and the other is a fairly challenging strike. If you've been following along on screen, we just so happen to be heading to the location that you need to go to start this quest. Load into the Trosslands on the EDZ and make your way into the salt mines. Use the teleporter in the back of the first full room of ads and make your way up the hill. You see that blue barrier right there on the right? That's got nothing to do with us. Rather, keep close to the edge of the cliffside. Dead end, right? No. Look up and jump through the hole in the rocks. And you have found an abandoned campsite. But Ironworker, there's nothing here. Wrong. Inspect the old fire pit. And what do we have here? A melted hunk of metal that looks exactly like Thorn. Take this back to Banshee 44 at the tower and he will start you on the Independent Study quest step. These next three quest steps can be completed in patrol zones, in specific PvE activities, or in the Crucible. You can always mix and match these as you see fit. The first step is to gather 50 Hardonic Essence. You can get these by doing bounties for Asher on Io, which will net you 5 Hardonic Essence, Nightfall Strikes will net you 15, and killing Warlocks in the Crucible will get you 3 apiece. And let me pause here for just a second. The amount of materials gained from the bounties and Guardians defeated will remain constant for the next 2 quest steps. There are only 3 destination bounties available per day, and the evacuation bounties here in Season 11 do not count toward progress. And in a Crucible, you only need defeats, not outright kills, so an assist will do just fine. Step 2, gather plasteel platings by completing bounties for Sloan on Titan. Finish runs of the Blind Well. Tier 1 will net you 4 plasteel platings, and a heroic run will net you 10. Other tiers will be somewhere in the middle. Or defeat Titans in the Crucible. Step 3 will be to gather Sapphire Wire by finishing bounties for Anna Bray on Mars, clearing waves of Escalation Protocol for 5 Sapphire Wire per wave, or defeat Hunters in the Crucible. On to Step 4, which is a doozy. Defeat Guardians in the Crucible using Void Energy or Hand Cannons. Precision Streaks using Void Hand Cannons grant the most efficient progress. Progress is multiplied in Iron Banner or Survival Crucible matches. And the kicker is, these must be secured kills, not defeats. So, kills with any Void Weapon or Void ability will net you progress, and kills with any Hand Cannon will net you progress. If you're fairly comfortable with using hand cannons in the Crucible, allow me to suggest some fairly accessible legendary Void options. The Ikelos Hand Cannon, the Thin Line, the Kindled Orchid, or the Optative. And I do believe that comp matches and Iron Banner matches will double your progress. But in standard Crucible game modes, plan on netting somewhere between 3 and 5% progress for a moderately productive match if you are a player of average skill. Needless to say, this can take a while. Once finished, head to the farm of all places and talk to Tyra Karn, before arriving at the final quest step, which is the Chasm of Screams. This is basically the Savathûn Songstrike on steroids. Your modifiers will be Blackout, so no radar and enemy melees will be extremely powerful. Iron, so enemies are not able to be staggered. And Harsh Elements, where you will receive extra incoming elemental damage. Alright, I did not capture live footage of this strike, but there are 3 things I want you to be aware of. First, this strike can be extremely difficult, regardless of how overleveled you are. Bring a full fire team because only highly skilled players can even think about soloing this. 2, once you reach the boss room, do not, I repeat, do not immediately melt the Shrieker. If you do, the strike will complete and you will leave empty-handed. I know this from a soul-crushing first-hand experience. 3 mini-boss knights will spawn periodically throughout the boss encounter. You must kill all 3 knights before destroying the Shrieker. There is a cheese you can take advantage of here if you're not up to the challenge of the final encounter though. On the face of this cliffside there is a ledge one player can stand on and remain safe from any damage. The other 2 fire team members are going to be topside doing all of the work, but as long as the ledge stander doesn't fall asleep and get kicked for inactivity, the encounter will never get reset. And once all the knights have been defeated and the Shrieker is vanquished, one of the most powerful weapons in the game will be yours. Thorn is an exotic kinetic hand cannon shooting at 150 rounds per minute with 9 rounds in the magazine. Taking a look at the stats, the only area that is a little bit lacking is the reload speed. But Thorn has the best base handling of any hand cannon, and the stability is better than that of any of the other 150 RPM hand cannons, except for Luna's Howl Not Forgotten. The range stat, while it's good, it's not exceptionally good. It's on par with other 150 RPM hand cannons. Here again, only bested by Not Forgotten and the high impact hand cannons. Checking the hidden stats on light.gg, we can see Thorn has an aim assist value of 85, a bounce intensity of 0, and a recoil direction of 100. So the little recoil that we do experience will be mainly vertical. Thorn's intrinsic trait is Mark of the Devourer. Rounds pierce targets and do damage over time. Kills with this weapon leave behind a remnant. Thorn's exotic perk is Soul Devourer. Absorbing a remnant strengthens Mark of the Devourer and partially refills the magazine. So now let's take a look at what exactly all of that stuff means. So let's head over to the Tribute Hall to get a baseline sense of the functionality of Thorn. As you can see, when we secure a kill on an enemy, they drop a remnant that actually tracks us down quite aggressively. When absorbed, it adds 3 bullets straight to the magazine without pulling them from reserves. We also gain the Soul Devourer buff for 7 seconds. A few things to note here, you do need to be roughly 15 meters away from the remnant before it will lock onto you. Also, these remnants will expire after about 6 seconds, so you need to grab them rather quickly. The remnants are subject to the 6-second timer whether they have began tracking to you or not. Each additional remnant that you absorb will add 7 seconds to your buff timer, but will not push it past 10 seconds. Now the buff from Soul Devourer does not increase the bullet damage, only the burn damage. This knight takes 2,275 points of impact damage, and then 4 ticks of burn damage at 271 points of damage apiece, for a total of 3,359 points of damage per shot. But with Soul Devour, we see that same 2,275 points of impact damage from the bullet, but the burn damage moves up to 811 points of damage per tick, for a total of 5,519. That is roughly a 64% damage increase, which is substantial. So while it normally takes 17 shots to finish this knight, with our damage buff, we can do it in just 11 shots. Alright, to put Thorn's damage output in perspective a little bit better, this Spare Rations hits for 2,296 points of damage, which is 1,063 points of damage less than Thorn without Soul Devourer procced. A single body shot from the Parcel of Stardust shotgun does 15,334 points of damage. When Thorn is buffed by Soul Devourer, it can better this damage output in 3 bullets. And with that, I think I've thrown enough numbers at you for now, so let's head into strikes and public events and talk about his performance there. First off, in your general PvE environments, Thorn, perhaps to some people's surprise, is a very solid primary weapon. This thing can rip through packs of adds very efficiently. Not really in the spectacular grand finale of a fireworks display manner that you would see from Graviton Lancer's Sunshot, but it does the job. The relatively high single shot damage from Thorn means you'll be able to shift your attention from enemy to enemy very rapidly. Even more so when you get a good feel for how many bullets you're going to need to commit to each enemy combatant before shifting your focus and letting the damage over time finish them off. Plus, with each enemy that you drop, provided that you're near enough to absorb the remnant, you're replenishing your magazine. Most of your red bar enemies aren't going to take any more than 3 shots from Thorn, so you should find yourself flush with ammo at all times. Also, with the Soul Devourer damage buff, as we saw in the Tribute Hall, Thorn does have the ability to deal with major targets pretty well. Obviously, it won't outright match the damage of fusion rifles, snipers, or shotguns, but shot for shot, the damage output is nothing to sneeze at. Especially given the fact this allows you to conserve your special ammo, which can be spent better on your more tanky majors or mini-bosses. And generally speaking, in most PvE environments, there should be plenty of adds around to keep that damage buff rolling. So if you're committed to taking out a target with a more robust health bar, just pop a trash ad every so often, get that remnant, and get back to work. Against bosses, it's certainly not the best DPS option, but it can help out in a pinch if you're starved with special and heavy ammo. Once the adds dry up in the boss arena though, Thorn does lose some of its luster. But really, how much can you ask for out of a primary weapon? A little added utility to be aware of is that Thorn can shoot through Taken Blights, so no need to run in there to damage enemies. To the best of my knowledge, it cannot shoot through any other type of barrier or shield though. But Thorn does overpenetrate targets. The burn only applies to the initial target struck, but watch this acolyte behind the knight. It takes full impact damage from the bullet, and it does create a remnant. Just a few drawbacks to touch on here, we are talking about a hand cannon with a 9-round magazine in a PvE environment. So do be diligent about picking up those remnants to keep yourself from constantly having to reload. And also being a kinetic primary, it is a little bit less effective against enemies who have an elemental shield. Plus, there is no catalyst for Thorn, so you cannot generate orbs of light with it. But all in all, I would say Thorn in PvE is a very impressive primary weapon. But how about in Gambit? So in Gambit, many of the same things we talked about in the PvE section still apply. Thorn does do a very nice job in aiding you in clearing a side of adds, and making moats as quickly and efficiently as possible. Thorn can also be pretty useful when returning to the bank after clearing a wave, if you find that your bank got all jacked up with blockers while you were away. If you still have some of your buff timer left, you'll be more effective in clearing out these blockers with limited use of special ammo or your abilities in many cases. For invading or dealing with invaders, I feel like Thorn could have a place, if not for the way the invasion phase generally plays out. If you're playing against competent players, it can be really hard to close the gaps on them if they're using snipers, xenophage, or hammerhead in Gambit. But that's not to say that it can't be done, and once the gap is closed, Thorn does do solid work. But I wouldn't say that invading solely with the mindset of using Thorn is the best idea for most players. During the boss phase, Thorn actually kind of has a chance to shine, or at least carry some much appreciated damage when you need it most. When the situation arises that you're out of special ammo and out of heavy ammo and primary bullets are all you got left, in this case, Thorn is definitely one of the better options to have equipped. And with that, let's take Thorn into its true home, the Crucible. Well, I hope you enjoyed your nice break from damage numbers, because I've got some more coming your way. Just keep in mind that I am rolling into damage over time numbers with the full damage for simplicity's sake. Actual times may be just a shade longer, as it does take a moment for enemies to burn out. In PvP, on a precision shot landed, Thorn will do 68 points of impact damage and 4 ticks of burn damage at 2 points of damage apiece for a total of 76 points of damage. On a body shot landed, we will do 43 points of impact damage with 8 points of damage from the burn for a total of 51 points of damage. So our optimal time to kill comes in at 0.8 seconds, requiring 2 crits and 1 body. And our body shot time to kill does remain at 1.6 seconds, because while the math does check out to where this should down a Guardian in 4 shots, because of the numbers in-game rounding up a touch, it is still taking 5. With the Soul Devourer buff procced, we are still doing that 68 points of impact damage on a crit, but the damage ticks are now doing 7 points of damage apiece, for a total of 28, making a single bullet cause 96 points of damage. And to the body, we are seeing 71 points of total damage. So here, both the optimal time to kill and the body shot time to kill will be 0.8 seconds, requiring 3 body shots. Now this is on a Guardian running 6 resilience. If Smelly Drifter drops his resilience down to 5, we can 2-tap him in 0.4 seconds. Now when squaring off against the super, you can down a Guardian in their super with 6 headshots, taking 2 seconds. But with the Soul Devourer buff procced, you can do it with 5 headshots, taking only 1.6 seconds.
Shut the enemy down.
Lastly, checking the range, Thorn can do full crit damage from up to 26 meters away. Past that, we're going to see some damage fall off. And with that, let's head into the pros and talk about where Thorn can excel in the Crucible. Thorn in PvP is downright amazing. I mean, the damage numbers speak for themselves. This hand cannon's performance in this aspect is mind-blowing. At base, there is not another hand cannon outside of the 110s that can secure a kill with 2 crits and 1 body, making Thorn very forgiving. And then on lower resilience Guardians, Thorn can potentially 4-tap them to the body, making Thorn even more forgiving and extremely deadly, even in the hands of a less skilled player who may have a tough time hitting headshots. And all of that is without the Soul Devourer buff. Once you absorb a Remnant, the insanity dial gets cranked up even further. Not only are bullets being pulled out of thin air and stuffed into your magazine, but the increased burn damage just makes Thorn so stinking powerful. I never would have thought in a million years that Bungie would have been crazy enough to let Thorn 2-tap again, but they did. Granted, you do have to work for it now, and your target needs to be running 5 resilience or less. But it can happen, and it does happen. Then when buffed, we can match our base optimal time to kill just by hitting 3 body shots. Which, I mean, just about anybody can pull that off. And these damage numbers can get even more ridiculous by working in the Charge with Light system, or using some sort of damage increasing perk from your subclass. But I'm gonna leave it up to you to tinker around with that stuff. Also, Thorn handles like an absolute dream. Swapping on and off of this weapon is seamless, and the ADS speed is quick and smooth. Plus, we're dealing with an extremely stable hand cannon here, even when spam firing the weapon. You can see we have a very vertical recoil pattern when both aiming down sights and firing from the hip, and the spread, all things considered, isn't that bad. But if you're able to slow your shot cadence down just a touch, you can really pile these bullets on top of each other. And I'm just gonna keep going. The respectable range stat, along with the high aim assist value, seems to do a good bit in helping you land your shots. These two stats in combination seem to be giving you a very generous amount of bullet magnetism with your shots, making enemy players' hitboxes feel just a touch larger than they should be. Then, like we discussed in previous reviews of weapons that deal damage over time, more specifically Le Monarch, these damage ticks are free information. The window to gather this information is brief, but a lot of times if an enemy player disengages after taking damage, you can tell if he made a full break for it or just slipped around a corner and turtled up. Thorn also outputs better than normal damage at extended ranges due to the burn, since obviously your damage over time is guaranteed and is not affected by any sort of fall off. And just in case you were wondering, yes, Thorn's shots still do overpenetrate targets in PvP. And while I may seem very excited about Thorn, I try to keep these reviews as objective as possible. So let's take a look at some drawbacks. Alright, first off, we are dealing with a weapon that has 9 rounds in the magazine with a relatively slower reload speed. This can be negated by running hand cannon loader mods, or in my case by wearing Ophidian aspects. But just at base, if you're not in position to absorb any remnants, expect to reload often and expect it to take some additional time. Next, the burn damage can kind of be countered if the enemy player can deploy some sort of healing ability quickly enough. I notice this most when dueling against Worm Husk Hunters, who like to dodge and then interrupt your stupid fast time to kill value. If at all possible, just keep in mind who you're shooting at and know what to expect. Also, chasing down that remnant to try to get my Soul Devourer buff tends to get me in trouble sometimes. I mean, it's like Lord of the Rings, and that remnant is the precious. I often found myself running head down right through the middle of firefights trying to grab them without even thinking. But really, it's best to show a little bit of reserve if you can help it. Don't be stupid like me. These are not Pokemans. You don't have to catch them all. You can let some go. And lastly, on console, hand cannons generally just do not perform as well. And while Thorn behaves in exactly the same manner, regardless of your gaming platform, it's just a little bit harder to be very accurate with that narrower field of view and the less precise controller input. And I think that covers everything, so onward to the verdict. So Thorn, no matter where you take it, is a phenomenal weapon. While its overall usefulness in the PvE side of the game is surprising, Thorn's true strength lies in the Crucible. Thorn is great. It always has been great. Maybe it always will be great. It's just so powerful and it can do things that most weapons aren't capable of. In my opinion, this is one of the few guns that can potentially give 600 round per minute auto rifles a run for their money right now. If you don't have Thorn yet, go get it. And if you didn't understand exactly what Thorn was capable of before this review, go try it. It's an amazing hand cannon. Its functionality and raw power in Destiny 2 even further solidifies its place as a core pillar of the Destiny franchise. This was by far my most ambitious weapon review I have ever done, so if you did enjoy it, I beg of you, hit the like button to communicate that sentiment. And to catch more weapon reviews similar, but shorter than this one, feel free to subscribe to the Ironworker Gaming channel. If you'd like to follow me on either Twitch or Twitter, you can look for Ironworker814 on either of those platforms. And the best way to contact me is simply to comment down below. Thoughts, feedback, questions, constructive criticism, they're all welcome. And with all that being said, thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this weapon review. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.